Hello. In this dot loop minute video, we're going to cover a transaction loop, what happens when a property is, a contract is terminated and your buyer goes back out and finds another one that they want to write an offer on. We get them back under contract. Remember, we want to try to keep the loops per buyer. So specific just to buyer loops for this video. And we want to keep the loops per buyer. So everything we do with this buyer should be in one loop, no matter how many offers we write that are rejected, no matter how many contracts we have that are terminated, and of course the one that we have that's going to close. So we have our buyer loop, 1234 Main Street, anywhere, North Carolina. And we have in a previous video discussed loading that signed agency paperwork from our buyer prospect loop into the transaction loop. So now we have that transaction loop for this buyer, or the agency paperwork for this buyer. And that's not going to change. We've already done that. Just keep in mind your expiration date of your buyer agency agreement. So if they're under contract and then they terminate and they want to go back out looking, make sure that your agency agreement is current. If you need to renew it, you have Form 710 to do that. But we've also come through because I've had an offer and contract folder. Again, this contract is terminated. So all this paperwork I have in here that applies to this transaction is, one, no longer needed, and two, isn't going to apply to the next offer and contract. Same thing with our property legal and research folder. We're going to have to research another property when they find another property to go under contract for. So the first thing I would do when these buyers choose to terminate for any reason, the first thing I would do next to the folder, these three little action dots out here on the right give you a lot more options than what we're looking at right now. So if I come next to the folder, three little action dots, one thing I'm going to do is click rename, and I may say, for example, terminated. So we know that this is the terminated offer folder, and we can close it. And you can even take this a step further and kind of tuck it down here to the bottom where it's not in your way. Same thing with that property legal description. Presumably, you're going to have another property to do the research for. So best practice might be just to terminate this one, put it down here with the offer, and then you don't have to worry about it. You may also have a rejected offer, a contract that was never formed. So again, you could call that offer rejected. Instead of terminated, you could call it rejected, and know that you have everything for this one buyer in this one loop. So please don't fight the urge to create multiple loops. We're trying to keep every buyer in a loop. We're trying to keep every seller in a loop. So this buyer's come back out. Again, you can see our buyer agency paperwork is still here. So I don't have to ask them to sign anything, possibly the agency agreement renewal and or amendment, Form 710. But now they've gone out and they have found another property. So now instead of 123 Main Street, let's say you take them out this weekend and you show them, what do you want to show them? 456 Elm Street. So we want to rename the loop. So you and I know what it is. Now I have a caution for this in just a second that I will share with you so you can help your buyers. But we've renamed the loop. They will now want to make an offer on 456 Elm Street. So now we want to add a folder. And you can see here, it's giving me the option right away. My little blinking cursor here, it gives me the option right away to rename it. So now we're going to do, let's say, an offer to purchase and contract for 456 Elm Street or whatever. So you know what this is. We also need to add a folder and rename it to the legal research for 456 Elm Street. So we're creating new folders to put this new paperwork in. Legal research, you download everything, save it to your computer, and you can browse. But the offer folder we want to spend a minute with, because when you create a new loop and a new template, you get blank documents such as the offer to purchase and contract loaded and ready to go. But because in this case, we've already used that one and we're not creating a new loop, we're starting with a blank folder, which means we need to populate it. So once that I've renamed my folder, I'm going to click on Add Doc, and then I'm going to go to Templates. And you got a couple options here to get what you need in this folder. You may want to start with the BDGRE Buyer Docs 2024. You saw the same one in our buyer prospect loop for the buyer agency documents. But know that most forms, the most used forms that pertain to a buyer are here. So in addition to the agency docs that we saw in the previous video, maybe we want to add the sample offer to purchase and contract. We already have the wire fraud advisory signed, but I need a new 2T. I need the additional provisions for this one. I know I'm getting the RPOs and the MOG from MLS, so I don't have to worry about that. Lead-based paint from the MLS. Maybe we need a new due diligence request and agreement. So in other words, there are the more commonly used forms that you find in our pre-printed templates are here in this BDGRE Buyer Docs 2024 sample disclosure, etc. Whatever you need to repopulate that folder. So I've selected a few things. I'm going to hit copy. You can say I've imported 5 of 5, and you can see specifically what 5 they are. Remember, if you ever get to this point, you say, man, I didn't need the due diligence request and agreement. That's okay. Your 3 little action dots right here, one of your options is to archive it. So if you don't want to look at it, if you put it there by accident, you can archive it and get out of your way. Back to add documents. And our templates, let's say there's something for this transaction that you need that wasn't in the buyer docs. I'd say your next commonly used template folder is our 2024-2025 NCAR interactive forms. This folder houses all NCAR forms. So everything that they produce and allow us to use is here. If you've not clicked on this folder yet, the first time you do it, you'll need to enter your NERDS number. Once you do that, it connects you as an NAR member to .loop and gives you access to these forms. So if you haven't done that yet, you may want to start digging around for that NERDS number. So whatever else it is you need to add here, again, case by case. I don't know, maybe the car is going to come in the sale, so we're going to do an agreement for a bill of sale. That would be a unique situation that we don't have in the buyer docs, but it is an NCAR form, response to buyer's offer, that kind of thing. So we hit copy. It tells me I import 2 of 2. I say okay. And then we can see my new offer to purchase and contract for Elm Street, all while having my terminated paperwork here. One more quick thing with the caution. Because this loop started as 1234 Main Street, now that I've renamed it to 456 Elm Street, as I mentioned earlier, that's for you. That's only what you're going to see. If you change the name of a loop, I don't know why, I'm going to call it a quirky thing with .loop. It doesn't change the name if you send a document out for signature. So for example, even though we have renamed this to 456 Elm Street, whenever I complete this paperwork for this buyer and share it with them, the email they get from me is going to say, Julie Campbell has sent you documents for 1234 Main Street, because that's what I created the loop with. So you just may want to give them that caution if you do have to change the name. I know it can get confusing. The only other option you have is to do it the way we've always done it. And when you first, going back to when you first added the loop, when you first created the loop, we used to say start it with the buyer's name and then change it to the address. You may still want to do that so you don't have that confusion. However, now we have the buyer prospect loop that we can start that buyer paperwork with. So you may want to just name the property address when they find the one. Again, just keep that in your mind to let them know that when you send them this paperwork for this new offer, it's going to tell them that it comes from 1234 Main Street. Thank you.